Okay, so we're back, and I have Ms. Russo with us. So much, Brett, for coming on the podcast and just allowing us into your world.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So, Brett, how did you meet hubby?
So, hubby and I actually went to college together. We didn't date in college, but about 15 years after we graduated, he looked me up on Facebook and sent me a message. He was living in Hong Kong, I was living in New York, and we connected over Facebook. And 6 months later, we were engaged.
Wow, but you guys knew each other for quite some time, though.
We did. We knew each other in college.
So it's like kind of platonic kind of thing.
Yeah, we were
Yeah.
friends. Not close friends, but friends.
Yeah. I get it.
Wait,
I get it. So, is there any family history of infertility on your
no.
mother's side or father? No. Okay, so you were like the singled out one, then you were the one to break it all in within your family, then, huh?
Yeah, I mean, never crossed my mind. Never was on my radar. My mom, I'm a twin. My mom had twins, I
Oh,
think the first time she ever had sex. And, it was never thought, I'm healthy.
yeah.
I'm an athlete. I never had issues, menstrual issues or,
Mm-hmm.
anything. So I was not super stressed about it. I mean, it was just one of these things that I was completely shocked
Yeah.
when not thinking, no, this wouldn't be me.
So when did you and hubby begin trying to conceive? When after you
So
guys got married?
it's actually funny. We were living in New York. We got married when I was 36. And at that point, we had gone to my gynecologist and said, I know I'm a little older, I'd be high risk for having a baby. And what she told me was, not in New York, honey. Don't worry about it. Take your time, do what you need to do. And I took that as what she said. So we took a year and
Mm-hmm.
traveled and did stuff, and we didn't even think about having kids. So when we started my journey, I was already 38, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have kids, but it is later in the game. And of course, I had, issues. So that was just shocking little, a lot of times I wish I would have started a little earlier,
Yeah.
but,
But you're
again,
an ambitious woman. You got to do what you got to do first.
I know, my husband and I had only been together for, a year, and I'm like, we need to spend time together
Yeah,
before we
absolutely.
really get on this journey. So we started, about a year into our marriage, and I really thought it was going to be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And about 10 months later, we were still nothing. And it was getting pretty devastating at that point. I mean, it went from something that was fun and we were getting the tests and looking at it together to each month getting worse and worse. So finally we knew, I'm like, all right, let me just go get a consultation with an infertility clinic. Still even thinking, I just needed a little
Yeah.
push. I didn't, I wasn't going to be someone that was going to have issues. I still was in a little bit of denial with that.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
a lot of
I think because when you are ambitious and you've done a lot with your life and you traveled the world and you've seen it all and you've done it all, you kind of feel like, well, this is going to be easy. This should be easier than anything else I've ever done.
yeah.
And yes, I definitely get that. So at what point did you go to see a specialist and you were like, you know what, let's just go?
So we were about 10 months of trying naturally, nothing. We had no success at all. So we went into the city, went to a clinic, and I was put in this category called unexplained. My husband's sperm
Okay.
was fine and perfect, which was,
Of course,
of
always.
course, well me. So that's what you're thinking. You're sitting there and you're saying, okay, this is me. It's me. It's me. It's hard not to feel that way,
Yeah. Yes.
Um, and so we went. I was in this category called unexplained, which led me to believe even further that I was going to be in and out of this.
Yeah.
So we did 2 IUIs, which is where they kind of
Mm-hmm.
baste up your husband's sperm inside of you and make
Mm-hmm.
you ovulate at a certain
Turkey
time.
baster joke that everybody talks
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
exactly. And my levels were really good and everything was really, I thought that was going to be it, but it didn't. And we had to move to IVF.
Wow. Wow. So you never had I won't say clear, but you never had like a diminished ovarian reserve diagnosis or anything then?
I was on the low side of normal for my
Okay.
age.
Okay.
So it wasn't like I had a low egg count, but I was definitely like on, I forget what it was, but if it's like 1 to 1.5, I was 1, or, I definitely had the lowest of my age group. And what I learned through this process is that, you can have 50-year-olds that can have babies and you can have 20-year-olds that have trouble. It really is a person's, personal cycle, and they can make these generalizations based on age. But it looked like I was further along in my reproductive process than a regular 38-year-old.
Okay. Okay. So how long did it take you guys to get pregnant? Like, tell me a little bit about your journey with IVF.
We had a tough journey. We had 5 rounds of IVF. The first round, they weren't pulling a lot of eggs. I was under this impression that you get 30 eggs, 20 eggs, and they were pulling 2, 4 at most. I think my best round was 6, which happened once. So that was devastating, not realizing that, I think my preconceived notions going into round 1 were I had no clue. I thought I'd be one and done, bank some eggs for the future. It was going to be great. I had the best attitude about it. And then, once you retrieve the eggs, and I'm sure your viewers know this, but, they dwindle, you only a certain percentage fertilize, only a certain percentage mature. And then we did the genetic testing. So only a certain amount of that, especially at my age, I think it's only 50-50 survive. So, it was pretty devastating, the amount of numbers we were getting. I think the first round we had 1 that went for testing that didn't make it. The same happened for 2 and 3. Round 4, I ended up with 2 viable embryos. And then we went for a 5th because, my doctor had said it's really every 2 embryos for 1 pregnancy. And I had never been pregnant before. So I didn't even know if my journey was just beginning, So I went for a 5th, which we got nothing. It was horrible. So we just put it in. We got very lucky with our transfers. We really did. So
All in all, how long did it take to get your BFP?
2 years. I was a little crazy though. I didn't take much time between anything. I was go. Mm-hmm. We did the genetic testing, which I think saved a lot of time. I never transferred an egg that wasn't tested because I was afraid of wasting time for an egg that wasn't genetically sound. If I have advice to anyone, I know it's a little extra money, but if anyone, that's my advice, is that especially at an age where your eggs, if you're 29 or 30, maybe not, but when you're approaching 40 and half of your eggs aren't going to be viable, it might be a good idea.
I totally agree. And I think about that a lot going into IVF again next year because I'll be 37. And so I'm like, I'm probably going to have to do that this time. I didn't have to do it the first time 4 years ago, but probably going to have to do that again this time. You made a really interesting point earlier, too, when you were saying that you didn't really take any breaks during the couple of years that it took you guys to get your BFP. And I'm sure you probably felt like, I got to get this thing moving because I'm not getting any younger.
No, that was the hard part. I felt everyone around me was having kids. I have a twin brother who I'm insanely close with, and they got pregnant basically on the first try.
Wow.
Right in the middle of our process, which was just, of course,
happy and devastating at the same time, right? Isn't that weird? How
you want to be so happy and you're guilty, feeling unhappy, and you want to, you want your kids to grow up together, and
right.
It's hard with this process. You go through it and you still want what you want. If you wanted multiple kids, it doesn't make you want less kids. It doesn't, you realize like in these processes, you just, for me, I just wanted to go. But a lot of times it's mentally draining, as you know, and people need breaks. They need emotional breaks. I have plenty of women that I've talked to that said, I just needed to take 6 months to myself. I just, and because I wasn't getting a lot of eggs in my retrievals, I think that, the rounds, though they were emotionally draining on me, I don't think they were the worst physical rounds for me. I had the typical, hormonal craziness and bloating and, hot flashes, and everyone knows. the beauty, but I don't think I was having it as bad as other women that get 20 eggs, 30 eggs, stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You
You're
know?
gonna have to deal with like the ovarian hyperstimulation and stuff like that. That happens to a lot of women, which is, I heard is really painful, really, really painful. But how did you and your husband deal with together? Did you find it difficult together, or were there times where you were like really in sync, really on one accord, and just trying to emotionally be there for one another? Did you find it difficult to be there for him? And or was it like for me, I had moments of selfishness because I wanted it so bad. I didn't take into consideration how he felt and what he was going through as a man, and he couldn't fix it because they want to fix everything for us. So
I mean, that's a very interesting point. I mean, sometimes you're so in your own grief that you forget that they're going through it too. I had a pretty eye-opening moment. My husband was very supportive, especially for a guy that has two brothers. He was definitely in sync with my emotions, was very, very there for me, on board for anything that I decided and that we decided. And that was very helpful. But I think as we got deeper into the darkness, deeper into the grief, I definitely got more selfish. And I think what would happen is, I'm a very positive person, and I would say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. And he's definitely more realistic, like, okay, well, let's not get our hopes up. Let's just, and I think that, we had moved out of New York City into a house in New Jersey, thinking we had bought the house ahead of time. We weren't moving in for 6 months. And I'm like, oh, we'll definitely have a baby on the way. When we got there, cried, kicking and screaming, leaving New York City. And we were moving this house for freaking Brady Bunch, and we had no kids. So there was a moment of time where I went a little crazy, kind of decorating every room because it was killing me that the rooms were empty. It was just this constant reminder. I think I was fixating on that in order to kind of deal with my own grief. And one day we were at the dinner table, and I just done one of the rooms, and I was feeling so inspirational. And I was like, you know what? I know the eggs are in there. I'm gonna keep going until we find them. And he goes, well, you can't do this forever. And then it started this big argument, like, he's like, and why are you decorating these rooms? It hurt him that we were decorating rooms for people that didn't exist. And I hated seeing them empty. And it was a very eye-opening moment for both of us where we were able to have a candid discussion, after a very big argument about, you realize that everyone kind of gets in fetal position and just trying to cope the best they can, but no one knows how to cope with something like this. You know how to cope with little things throughout your life, but this is not something that someone prepares you for, nor is the general public that supportive because they don't know about it. So they'll say things that are insensitive and kind of make you clam up a little more because you're not getting the answers you need from other people. You're not feeling good about those conversations. So it's hard. I mean, I think that the important thing is to communicate, good, bad, or ugly, whatever you're feeling, to stay on the same page. But it's hard on a couple. I mean, it's a lot of grief, and men deal with grief differently than women. We cry. I did. I cried. I was mad one day. I was sad the other day. I was hyper, driven the next day. And I think it was really hard for him not only to have what was happening to us, but also seeing me hurting and bloating and going through the physical process of it. I mean, with the bruising and I mean everything. It's a lot, especially as you get that many rounds under your belt. It's like,
yeah,
when do you give up? And that was my big question. When do you give up? I don't
when do I
know.
stop? Yeah, I just feel what when people do stop and they walk away without the bundle, I feel like they know when it's time.
Mhm.
They know when they know really. And you brought up a really interesting point too during your talking about that was that the general public and family members and friends who have never experienced it, never watched anybody go through it, not knowing how to deal with you, not knowing how to love on you, what you need and stuff. And you said that your brother had some babies while you guys were in the midst. Did you find? Well, did you find it? Did you find yourself isolating during that time?
I mean, isolating is probably the biggest word that represents what I was feeling.
Yeah.
I was definitely feeling failure, and I was feeling very isolated and very in the dark. And, it was hard because people that I always used to go to for advice, they were just too easy to dismiss it as, don't worry, it will happen. Stop stressing
Right.
and go adopt a child. My friend adopted a child and a few months later got pregnant, and all
Wow.
these things that were just, they felt insensitive to me, and it felt like, if they were in that situation, I don't think they would be acting any differently than me. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what inspired me writing it down, is that we are all, though our stories are so different, the
Mm-hmm.
feelings we're feeling are so similar. And
Very.
I remember I went to a new doctor after our second round, and he was going, Dr. Scott at RMA, and
Mm-hmm.
he was going through everything. And at the end of it, he goes, "Do you have any questions?" And I said, "Well, what do I need to do? I mean, should I not do gluten? Should I do acupuncture?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do with my diet? I mean, I've been doing this and that." And he just grabbed my wrist. I'll never forget it, from across the table, and said, "Brett, this is not your fault."
Mm-hmm.
And I think I didn't realize how much guilt and how much, like, I was holding on my shoulders. And that was a big moment for me to say, just kind of release, to say, this is not my fault, And I think that was a very defining moment for me in feeling isolated, because, again, you don't know where to turn. And even your good friends, and you can't blame them for it. They're going to not know what to say. And you're mad when they follow up. You're mad when they don't follow up. I mean, it's a very sensitive time. I was lucky. I had a very good support group with my twin brother, my husband, and my mother. But it's hard. It's hard. But you're not alone. And that's kind of the other thing that I wanted to be. This inspired me to be there for other women, because we're not alone. And it's so
Yeah.
much more common than you hear. It's just something that, for whatever reason, women are embarrassed by, or husbands are embarrassed to
Yeah.
be open about. And there's nothing to be ashamed of. I mean, there's no difference between this and any other medical condition. There's nothing you can change
Nothing.
about it. And though your general health obviously plays a role in, it helps anything you do, but it's important for us to talk about it. No one needs to struggle in silence. And
Exactly.
it's nice to open up to other women that have been through it, and I want to be there for other women that have been through it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into this book, this juicy book. So, did you have journal entries? Yes, I love it. Did you have journal entries that you pulled from when you were writing it? Is that kind of how the idea came about in one way or another?
When I first started my journey, I was obviously sad. It was hard, and I started writing, kind of with the intention of maybe helping other people or doing something with it. But I'll be honest, I didn't think I'd have a story to tell. I thought I was going to be in and out, and it wasn't going to be anything. And then every time we got more bad results, it was, oh, okay, that's another chapter at least, and I would keep going. I stopped writing probably right smack in the middle of it, when I was just too devastating and too dark. And I did have an outline that I kept writing, things that were happening or moments that, if I was, it was therapy for me to kind of just let out what I was feeling, or if someone said something insensitive, or a moment where I didn't feel right, or I had to go to a baby shower, or whatever it was. And I kept writing it down. And then after, I don't want to be a spoiler alert, but then after I became pregnant, I picked it back up, and started writing. And, what I did was I announced on Facebook that I was pregnant, and I said, this isn't for you to envy me. We had a battle, we had a journey, and it was kind of like speaking to other women out there, don't give up. And I went to bed. The next morning, I had 27 private messages and about 400 likes and comments. So many women reaching out to me. This is my journey too. I don't know where to turn. And I said, you know what? This book is not about me anymore. It's about you out there. And I knew I had to finish it. And that was just my inspiration. That's when I knew at that point that I had to finish.
That's incredible. That's incredible, Brett. And I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you were like really totally shocked with all of the connections that you have, that so many
Mhm.
came forward like that, and they were silently suffering. Because that's kind of my motto here at Infertility Me Podcast is no more silent suffering, and our focus on the silent sufferer. Because, like you said earlier, it's very common. Statistics tell us here in the U.S., 1 in 8. That is very, very common.
Mm-hmm.
for more people not to be speaking about it, and that's incredible. That's incredible. So how long did
The
it
more
take?
I talked about it, the
Yeah,
more
yeah,
people I connected with. And I almost wish I had these connections before, but there
yeah.
was something about writing something down. I was, obviously had to talk to a lot of women, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of women that have been through it have read the book, and just things to say, oh my God, I feel like you're living my life. And that makes you feel less alone, to know that you had this crazy moment where you're, in your car crying before a client meeting. I've
Those
been there
those
too.
crying moments in the car, girl. Oh my gosh.
And you feel
Oh,
better to know someone's been through it. It's not that
yeah.
you want that for them, but it's like, okay, I'm not as isolated. I'm not as alone. And unfortunately, when I went through it, I didn't do a good job of researching.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many great groups out there that
There
can
really
help
are.
each other, and podcasts like this. I mean, I just kind of clammed up, but it's important to, it's important more than
Yeah.
ever to say how you're feeling and help people.
Yeah. So with your book, when you were writing your book, did you have moments where, of course, you're reliving it when you're writing it, but did you
Mhm.
have actual moments where the reliving it was like literal, like you was it therapeutic for you in a way where you would cry while you were writing, while you were typing? Did you have moments like that when you were writing it?
The whole time. I
Yeah.
mean, it was, I felt that I had to be as authentic and vulnerable as possible in order to
Mhm.
make this real. And I had to relive it every time I opened that computer. And it was hard, but I knew that it was I knew that the purpose was helping people. And that's why it was hard. It was definitely hard to relive some of the emotions. I know it was very hard for my husband to
Mhm.
relive those things.
Mhm.
And it's hard. I know right after I had gotten pregnant, I don't know if other people have had this experience, but all of a sudden I was pregnant, and everyone expected me to do the doodah dance and be so excited, and I hadn't cried, I hadn't cheered. I was just like, wait, is the next shoe gonna drop? Is this real? I was so close to my grief still. And I remember one night I was cleaning my house like crazy. I just had a free night, and I opened a cabinet, and all the needles were there and everything was there.
Wow.
And I just cried. And I cried so hard, probably harder than I had the whole process. And I think you have to forgive yourself for moving on sometimes. You have to say, it's okay. This doesn't define you anymore. And I think with the book, that was a lot of closure for me too, to say, okay, this is my story. Now I can move on.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
want to
I
help other
totally
people too.
resonate. Totally
Yeah.
resonate. I had a moment like that when I was pregnant too, and it was, the 20-week scan for the anatomy scan. They check all the baby's bone structures and make sure that there's no abnormalities and everything's growing properly. And that was the same day that you find out the sex of the baby if you didn't know before from PGS testing. I didn't do any PGS testing. We did a fresh transfer. And so for me, that was a surprise to find out he was a boy and everything on that day. And I just remember going back to the car because my husband after we found out it was a boy, he had to leave, but I had to stay to do paperwork. You know how that goes. And so I remember being in the freaking car, having a moment, and just bawling. It was just like this overwhelmed sensation of being scared that something was going to happen during the pregnancy, then reliving infertility and the 4-year journey that we had. And it was just all of that. It was like all encompassing. So I totally resonate with that. Totally resonate. And I think a lot of women and men and husbands go through that too, because my husband was scared the entire time that I was
Yeah.
pregnant, the entire time. And so, how long did it actually take you to write the book? Did you have to take breaks in between putting those emotions on the pages?
Yeah, I mean, I think it took me 2 years to write,
Mm,
about another year to edit,
right.
and about another half a year to publish and do all that. So just about 4 years. I would say about three and a
Mm-hmm.
half to 4 years. So I really agonized over every emotion. I wanted to make sure that the words were right on the pages. I wanted to make sure that everything in my experience was included, because I didn't want to leave anything out. I really didn't, because there's so many emotions that you go through. And I did try to draw out the humor. I mean, it's not a dark read. I mean, you may cry, but I want you to laugh too. I mean, there's a lot of funny things in there, and I think that, if you can draw out the humor of some of the stuff, it makes it easier too. I mean, you got to laugh. I mean, some of the things, right?
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
laugh.
Yeah, definitely. What's I going to ask you? So, how do you feel now with it being out there? Totally all the skeletons are out there, and did you find yourself feeling liberated?
I feel the best part about it is it just launched, this week,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to say the best part about it is I've gotten so many messages. My sister-in-law is going through this. I'm going to get her a copy.
Wow.
That kind of stuff and that was my ultimate goal. I mean, that was my passion that drove me to finish this book. I mean, I had a newborn at the time. I was literally put him to sleep and just write all night and wake up with him. And that was what I wanted. I wanted it to get into the hands of the women that are going through it. And I think that's been the best gift, like this week alone, just hearing that. So it's liberating in a way that I feel like it haunted me for a very long time to just get it out. It was
Mm-hmm.
very anxious for me. I just wanted it out, and I wanted it to get in circulation and off my brain a little bit. But it's nice because now it's in my heart, and I'm able to connect with a lot of people in my own network and in new networks, just that need it. So
yeah, wonderful.
It is liberating. And it's exciting to hold it in your hands,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Right.
Mm-hmm. So give us your website so we can go on there and purchase the book, and your social media handles if you like.
Sure. So my website is brett-russo.com, and all my updates will be on there. I have an Instagram and a Facebook, but that's, it's not really, I'm brusso18 but most of my updates are going to be through my website. So I think, you can find everything there, and the book's on Amazon and wherever books are sold as well. But I don't know if you guys, Amazon's at my house about 3 times a day. So.
Oh yeah, it's like Christmas for adults. Okay, I had an Amazon package the other day, and I was freaking dancing around the house because I was waiting for it. But
yeah,
sure. So you guys make sure that you check out Brett's website. Stay updated on all that she is doing in the fertility space and advocating and just being a voice and of comfort to all of us here in the fertility space. And thank you so much, Brett, for taking time out of your day and just letting us into your world. It's been a pleasure. It really has been. Really has been.
One thing I just
Glad we
wanted to
connected.
say, if you don't mind, throughout this journey, don't be afraid to change your ending. It's hard, and you're going to have to grieve certain dreams that you had, maybe, or, things that you wanted. But if you want to be a mother, you will be a mother, hook or crook. So don't let anyone tell you that you can't. Don't let a result tell you. I mean, there's so many options out there, and I'm not saying they're easier, and I'm not saying you're mentally going to have to get to those places, but I promise you, if you want to be a mother, you'll look at that baby one day and it'll be the only baby you were meant to have, whether you adopted it or was an egg donor, a sperm donor, or natural. I mean, so don't give up. Just don't give up. It's not something, if you want to be a mother, you will be. And I just wanted to say that.
Thank you for that inspiration, Brett. I appreciate that. And thank you, friends, for tuning in with us here at Infertility and Me podcast. Peace and blessings.